Welcome everyone to this week's video. Today we have a very special Fish Friday and a happy Mother's Day to everyone out there. Yes, I know it is a few days early, but it is still a Mother's Day special. And I thought, what better way to talk about fish on this holiday than to talk about the different spawning methods and level of parental care that fish species give to the world. We've talked about fish reproductive habitats in terms of what this species does individually, but I don't think we've had a comprehensive video on the different spawning methods that fish use. If I have, well, doesn't hurt to sort of reiterate. So today's Fish Friday is about no fish at all, but just about how fish spawn and their spawning methods and how they parentally care for their young. Let me hopefully fix that glare just a little bit. So, as many of you may know, a majority of the world's fish species are egg layers. But there's actually numerous types of even egg-laying fish, and not all of them do. We've talked about one of my favorite reproductive strategies many times in the past, and it's very prevalent in sharks and rays, live bearing. So live bearing fish essentially give birth to free swimming fry, which are babies. A lot of fish species even kept in aquariums are actually kept as live bears, such as the guppy. Now the guppy is a live bearing fish, part of the family Poecilidae. I believe it's Poecilidae. But live bearing fish are fish that have specialized adaptations that allow them to have internal fertilization, and sharks and rays are no different. The males will have at least in terms of guppies, will have a specialized anal fin called a gonopodium. And the gonopodium allows for internal fertilization to happen, and then the females will give birth to live young. You can see here the little fish guppy babies flying around. And this is an important adaptation, and we've talked about this in the past. We've talked about ovovipary and viviparity, especially when in regards to shark. And ovovipary is essentially the eggs hatch inside, and there's the different combinations of those, but they are still giving birth to live young. And how is that important? Well, eggs are when fish are the most vulnerable, and that should be no surprise. It is a soft egg mass that is, basically just, free range. If anything comes across it, they can be eaten very quickly and very easily, and eggs provide a lot of nutrition. That is why so much of a animal's biology goes into parental care, especially in mammals. That's why mammals evolved to give birth to live young. It allows them to protect their individuals a lot better. And yes, even, puppies and kittens, they're not exactly, moving around quickly after birth, but you have to think about how much longer that female that carried them, and versus a free swimming or a free individual that can move, that only has there. And you can also think about it in people, which is another reason why I want to try this. I wasn't going to mention this, but I will. Me and Mrs. Ping are expecting our number two baby. Sorry, speaking of which, that is who just texted me. In fact, it's going to come a lot sooner than you might think. In fact, her due date is next week, so there is a chance that, future Fish Fridays could be a little delayed. But live bearing is so important. So think about it in humans. Yes, humans are a larger mammal, but how long does it take before a human baby becomes essentially mobile to where it can semi-protect itself? We'll say 2 years. In the grand scheme of things, that is a very, very short time frame, and it's no different from live bears. Yes, they are still young, but essentially all live bears give birth to free swimming individuals that can avoid predators if needed. They are able to get their own food source and things like that. So live bearing fish is a very crucial adaptation to many fish species, and definitely a very interesting one, but we need to move on for this. Then you do have your egg layers, and they are your egg scatterers, which I don't have a picture of one, but they are going to be some like Danios, all the cyprinids of North America, where they are giving birth and laying eggs in very fast flowing waters, and that just allows them to scatter. And that sort of adaptation is so that that the likelihood of at least some of the eggs surviving is fairly high because you're scattering them over a large area. So you are allowing your young to essentially scatter about and have a good chance at least some of the young survival. Then you have your egg depositors, and you have multiple different kinds on that. You have essentially like your angelfish, which they are depositing eggs, but they are staying very close and protecting these eggs. And that would be more of like your secretive spawner. They usually find like somewhere crack, crevice. I have always liked the idea of putting like an old terracotta, a clean terracotta gardening bowl, garden bowl, garden container. Oh my goodness, what is it? Flower pots. There you go, flower pots. Cut a little hole, and angelfish absolutely love to lay their eggs in flower pots. You can also use like a floor tile and things like that, but essentially these are depositors. They're depositing their eggs. Not all of them are protected. Sometimes they just get depositive and they're kind of left alone. But usually depositors are much more known to guard their fry and their eggs. And then you have your sort of nest builders, which are essentially depositors that take it to an extreme. And the most common, or I don't want to say most common, one of the more well-known nest builders of the fish world is actually the betta fish. And betta fish create what are called bubble nests, where they actually take air and create little micro environments for their young. And they will protect these young pretty voraciously. And you can see here, this image almost looks AI generated. I do not think it is. There's too much sort of like minuscule details going into this. But essentially the eggs are left in these little air pockets, and that allows the fish to be in a very isolated bubble, very controlled environment, very, very protected by the parents growing around there. And this is a very, very pretty, beautiful way there. But nest building doesn't necessarily have to be this beautiful. You can actually have things that either create their own nests or they find stuff. And a good example of this is like catfish. Catfish are actually called cavity spawners, to where they find a cavity and that's where they deposit their eggs, and they will partially protect. And funnily enough, one of the best ways if you want to get catfish artificially to spawn is actually, many people don't know this, but you're aware, milk used to be delivered. We've all seen the cartoons of the milk being delivered in the little milk bottles, and they had milk delivery personnel and things like that. But there was actually a larger container that was often used for like restaurants or people that just had that many people living with them. And they had these giant, not giant, but very, very large metal milk containers. In fact, metal jugs. Yes, these old metal milk jugs like this. These are some of the best ways to get larger catfish to spawn. I'm talking about like channels and blues and flathead catfish. Obviously, the smaller catfish species, the smaller that you would need. But a lot of the catfish love to nest, or not even love, they're required to nest in cavities. But essentially, that is still a egg depositor. It's important to note that your depositors are, it's still the vast majority of fish species. It's just, how are they depositing eggs? How are they doing this? Are they building a nest? Are they just sort of scattering their eggs? Are they depositing them outside of a nest and protecting? So there's a lot of intricate things that could go into the multiple levels, but essentially, there's scatterers and there are depositors, and depositors are still leaving the eggs in sort of a mass somewhere. But then we get into sort of my second favorite reproductive method that fish have, and that is going to be, if I can find it, mouth brooding. And we've talked about mouth brooding multiple times in the past. This is jawfish. I can't remember which species this jawfish is, but this is called a jawfish. That was just the best picture I could find of mouth brooding. And mouth brooding takes parental care almost to an extreme. A lot of cichlids are known to be mouth brooders and exhibit a lot of parental care. Tilapia being one of them. It's one of the reasons why tilapia can be so invasive and so pervasive in community, in fisheries that they are not native to, because they exhibit so high levels of parental care that it allows the young to survive extremely well. And the reason why mouth brooding is both, so parentally demanding, and these are some of the best fish mothers in the world, almost on par with the mammals, which are known to exhibit high levels of parental care, and especially maternal care. Now, it's not just the female. In fact, very often it's the mother. It's both the female and the male. They exhibit mouth brooding, and that is where all the young, and oftentimes the eggs, are either gathered in the mouth or deposited in the mouth of the individual. Oftentimes the eggs are scooped up after the eggs are fertilized, and then they essentially will hatch inside the mouth, and the fry spend the vast majority of their larval stage in the mouth of the associated parent. And the mouth of the associated parent is where they survive and live. And if predators come around, they go inside the mouth and go from there. Now, there is a catch to this. There's actually a few catches to this. One catch is that usually when mouth brooding, the parent fish that is being the mouth brooder does not eat for the entire time that the fry are in their larval stage, which is one of the reasons why fish metabolism and diet is such a strange phenomenon to people outside of the mammalogy world, is because fish can survive many days and often weeks without eating. But that allows them to be fully focused on the parental care. The other caveat, though, is if a larger fish comes around, they not only get to eat the smaller parent fish, they also get to eat all the young. So mouth brooding is an incredibly effective method, but there are some drawbacks to it. But as any mother will tell you, there's drawbacks to just having young. If nothing else, you get little 3-year-olds that are a terror throughout the house. But there is one last adaptation that we need to talk about that I don't even have a picture, and that's that on me. And it is actually a egg depositor strategy, though. And this is probably everyone's favorite to talk about. Seahorse babies. Where seahorses will have this little pouch, the males will have this little pouch where the eggs are deposited, and that is actually the parental care that they give. Seahorses are essentially little armored tanks. That is how they survive. And we've talked about seahorses in the past, and they cannot swim at all. Seahorses are bad at swimming. I'm sorry, it's just how they are. So they compensate that by basically being little swimming tanks. Not saying things don't like to eat them. They definitely do like to eat them. But this is the parental care that's given them. And this is actually a fairly interesting. You can see this male seahorse had the eggs deposited in its pouch where it's fertilized. And then after a while, after the fry sort of develop, that is when the male, you can almost say, gives birth. But essentially, it's more of like a extreme adaptation of brooding. Basically, essentially, the female is not giving birth to the egg, is not carrying the eggs, and the male is kind of carrying the eggs. But they are not internal in the same way, which is why seahorses are really, really heavily studied and bizarre. And honestly, we should do another seahorse video. It has been a while. But I just wanted to give this video to, first off, thank you all the mothers. Make sure everyone calls their mother if they can. Tell them Happy Mother's Day this weekend. I know they would appreciate it. But I really wanted to give this video. I know my viewers have learned about these in the past, but there's so many unique ways that fish not only give birth, but also care for their young. They are not just the sort of heartless, no parental care whatsoever that a lot of people have the misconception of these reptiles and fish being. But thank you guys so much again. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you do. I'd really appreciate it. Hope to see you again. If you'd like to support the channel, please click the link down below. It is by no means expected, but very much appreciated. Regardless, take care of yourselves. Take care of your loved ones. Go call your mother if you can. Happy Mother's Day to everyone. Happy Mother's Day to all my viewers who are mothers. And peace.